Former entertainment writer Josh Dickey has recently put out a bit of Warner Brothers' dirty laundry. Apparently, Zack Snyder was fired from the DCEU and Justice League. This was around the time that we were told he walked away for personal reasons due to the family tragedy of his daughter committing suicide. Well, according to Dickey, that is not what happened, and Warner Brothers actually forced Zack out and fired him. What does this mean for Zack's future? How will this affect the DCEU, and does this say something about Hollywood? In this video, I'm going over all of that and more. Let's talk about it. What is up, YouTube? It's Josh. This is the Den of Nerds. If you love comic book movies, subscribe to this channel. We cover all aspects of those types of films. Oh, and real quick, shout out to Chris Root, who got the nerd card question correct in my latest Dragon Ball Super video. You definitely know your stuff when it comes to Dragon Ball Super, so shout out to you, Chris. There will be another nerd card question at the end of this video. All right, guys, so this is a really crazy story. There's a lot to unpack here, and I'm gonna just straight up give my opinions. Now, I want to give a small disclaimer here. I am not a journalist. I'm just a YouTuber. I'm just a fan who likes these things, hears stories, and formulates my own opinion. So I'm gonna give it to you raw, and I'm gonna tell you how I really feel about this, because a lot of the people that are covering this in the media, man, I'm just really kind of disappointed in the coverage that they are doing about this story. And let me explain. So if you don't know what's happening here, Josh Dickey, who was a Mashable writer, he wrote for The Wrap, I believe he worked at Variety for a time, he's worked at a lot of different places in Hollywood. He came out and put out a tweet saying that he's going into DGAF mode, which means don't give a fuck mode, and he literally said, there's a hot scoop for you before I get the heck out of Dodge, and that is that Zack Snyder was fired last year. Not that he had to step away, he was straight up fired. Okay, so this story has a lot of implications, but let me talk first about the journalism and what people are in that field are saying about this story now. Okay, so I heard a lot of journalists say that like people in that industry sort of knew that this had happened. They had heard rumors about it, they had heard stories about it, but they couldn't exactly come out and cover it. They couldn't exactly say what was actually happening. Now, a lot of them were saying that they didn't want to cover this because of the family tragedy, right? You don't want to do something like this when someone is grieving. And if he's really stepping away for family reasons, and then you add to the fact by saying that he was fired, it's a really, really bad thing. But I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought journalists were supposed to report accurately, despite whose feelings were going to be hurt, what was actually happening. I tend to think that's their freaking job. So what I find completely whack about this is that all these journalists are coming out and coming down on Josh Dickey for putting out this tweet because it rattles cages, because it's gonna bring a bunch of heat on Zack, it makes Warner Brothers look bad, it's unprofessional, and yet they might have known what was actually going on. I mean, I don't know, man. To me, that just sounds completely fucked up. That's not the way journalism should work, in my opinion. I think we deserve to know the truth. And if this story does end up to be what actually happened, then Warner Brothers totally fucked Zack Snyder. They totally screwed this guy over. And Zack is a company man. He rides for the brand. He does what he has to do. He says what he has to do. And he was really, really nice and good about this entire situation. But here's the thing, if he really walked away just because of the family tragedy, then why wasn't he at the premiere? Why didn't he do any press for the movie? And why did he go and make that short film instead of working on the Justice League movie? So you're gonna tell me that this guy walked away and just wanted to be with his family, and yet he makes a film on his own? I mean, granted, it is a short film, but he literally was doing work, hours and hours a day, making this short movie. So I don't know, man. All signs point to me that some really screwed up Hollywood stuff happened, and they were like, hey man, you gotta go, and you also have to tell people that you are going away because of what happened with your daughter. Because remember, the suicide happened 2 months before he left the production officially. He took a couple weeks away when it first happened, the entire production stopped. Then he came back, and the reports when he was walking away, or, you know, essentially fired, were that he thought coming back to work would clear his mind, it would get him focused again, and it would help in his grieving. And he realized 2 months later that that's not the case. It's not helping, and he needs to walk away. I mean, I don't know. It sounded fishy back then, and it sounds especially fishy right now. So if this indeed actually happened, it just points to Warner Brothers as just being complete garbage, man. I mean, they should have made this decision before they started shooting Justice League. Remember, there was that 2-week period after Batman v Superman where they had the opportunity to make a different call. They had an opportunity to be like, no, we're not going to go with Zack. No, we're going to hold up. And at the very least, they probably should have taken a little bit more time, delayed production, and sort of come up with a consensus within the company. But instead, they went to go make the Justice League, and they were messing around with his vision from the very, very beginning. I mean, we know you can see different pieces of concept art that didn't make it into the film. When those journalists were all invited to London to do the set visit, there was something like 3 weeks into production, which was a total PR move. When they all went to do that, they all noticed stuff that was literally like being taken down from the walls and sort of hidden in the corner. I mean, Black Suit Superman's gone. There's so much stuff that's absolutely just wrecked because Warner Brothers was making corporate boardroom suit type decisions and killing this man's creative vision. By the way, let's talk about Batman v Superman real quickly here. I think the director's cut of that movie is 10 times better than the theatrical cut. And I believe what happened in that scenario was studio meddling. They were like, hey, Zack, this movie's great. Cut 35 minutes out of it. And he was left to sort of make a butchered film that really disappointed a lot of audiences. But this is the same guy that did Watchmen. He did 300. He did Dawn of the Dead. He is a brilliant filmmaker, and I actually really like Man of Steel, but I don't think it was designed to be the beginning of a shared universe. I think that is where it all went wrong. After Man of Steel, they started making all these hair-trigger decisions. Remember when we heard that the Man of Steel sequel was going to have Batman in it? And then all of a sudden, that movie's now called Batman v Superman. Batman's the first name in the title. Superman gets pushed to the bottom, and then the rest is history. So I believe that Warner Brothers literally just couldn't make a decision. They didn't have complete consensus, and they screwed up over and over again until enough was enough, and then they fired the guy that took 10 years of his life to build their shared universe. And to his credit, Zack, and probably mostly because his wife is a big producer over there, you know, took it on the chin, played the company man role, and didn't make a lot of waves. Now, I want to draw a parallel to the Rian Johnson thing here, because although I like The Last Jedi quite a bit, I would not be disappointed if Lucasfilm decided Rian should not develop his new trilogy, okay? And this is a perfect example of what happened with Batman v Superman. Were there a lot of DC fans that love that movie? Yes. But Warner Brothers should have looked at the consensus within their fandom and decided, no, we're not going to continue to go this way. Let's pull the plug. So that is what they should have done, and instead, this is what happened. Okay, now let's talk about what this means for everybody involved. A lot of people are saying that they think this is going to hurt Zack Snyder, and I don't really buy it, man. I think this will do nothing but actually help Zack Snyder, because I think the untold story of him being absolutely screwed needs to be out there. There are a lot of people that want the Snyder cut of Justice League. They know this is not his vision, and he has a huge fan base. And I think that if this story is true, and even if it isn't at this point, I think it does nothing but to elevate his status and paint Warner Brothers as the villain. And the truth is, it's going to hurt Warner Brothers more than anybody. I mean, they already have a divided fan base. People are pissed. We're hearing all these things about the 2-hour cut, how they knew the movie was going to be garbage, how they decided to push it out in 2017 just so they could get their bonuses. I mean, how can you even sit there as a fan and be anything but vehemently mad at Warner Brothers. And this is the icing on the cake. This does nothing but just make me hate Warner Brothers as a studio. And I know they have Walter Hamada now in charge of everything, but it still isn't enough. It doesn't make me feel good until they come out and say, we screwed up, we know we screwed up, and we're going to make these changes. Until that day comes, I'm going to look at everything that they produce when it comes to DC Comics just with total disgust. And that's just me personally, but that's just the truth. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is Hollywood. And I don't want to go into this too far because it's going to sound a little conspiracy theory, but man, with all the craziness and all the disgusting stuff that we are hearing coming out of Hollywood, it's not outside of the realm of possibility for me that executive bigwigs in suits sat Zack Snyder down and literally told him, you're fired and you're going to have to go tell people that you're walking away because of your family tragedy. And I literally think that on some level, they knew that hiding behind the fact that this was a family tragedy would prevent a lot of harsh criticism of the decision, and it would prevent people from looking too far into it. Remember what I said? All these journalists, they kind of knew this was happening, and yet they couldn't quite report it that way, right? They didn't want to go there because of the family tragedy thing. His daughter killed herself 2 months before this decision was made. Zack took some time to grieve. They stopped production. He took a couple weeks and then he went back to work because he wanted to be working. He didn't want to be sitting at home thinking about this. He wanted to be working. And then 2 months later, he decides that's not going to work and he leaves production, but then goes and makes a movie on his own. I mean, guys, fill in the blanks here. It sounds really, really messed up. So I'm not sure that happened. And does it even feel right to say it? No, it feels a little insensitive because obviously that's a tragedy. But I'm just so sick of these power plays and holding up these human things to prevent us from looking behind the curtain. Hollywood is a fucked up place, and I think that this is just one more example of something really, really screwy that happened. And I'm kind of embarrassed that a lot of journalists are sort of tiptoeing around this and not saying the reality of what I think is actually happening. So that's all I wanted to say on that subject, but I'm really curious to hear what you guys think. I mean, what do you think about this? Do you think he was fired? I mean, how do you feel about Warner Brothers now? Does this do anything for you when it comes to Snyder? I mean, are you a Snyder fan? Are you a hater of Snyder? Does this change your opinion on him? Does this change your opinion on Justice League? I mean, what do you think it was like for Joss Whedon? I mean, God, I could go into this forever. This is craziness, right? But I definitely want to know what you guys think about that in the comment section below. All right, let's check that nerd card really quickly. And I want to know, even though Steppenwolf was the villain in Justice League, there was another even bigger bad, which was supposed to be teased in the movie. It's a fan favorite character that Warner Brothers decided to cut out, probably after they fired Zack Snyder. But I want to know, what was the name of the badass big bad that should have been in the Justice League film? Let's all shout that name together in the comment section below. As I always say, I hope you're having an awesome and nerdy day. See ya!